Shalom Aleichem, everyone. Hope everyone had a wonderful, wonderful week. We're in the middle of Chag Pesach. What a glorious, glorious holiday. We, of course, call it Chag Pesach, but that's not what the Torah calls it. The Torah calls it Chag HaMatzos. If you look at the Rambam in his Halachos of Pesach, he has Hilchos Karban Pesach, but when he's Hilchos Pesach, he calls Hilchos Chametz U'Matzah. So whereas, for sure, there's an idea of Chag Pesach, but if you really think about it, Chag Pesach in the Chumash is the day before Pesach, is what we call Erev Pesach, the day we bring the Karban Pesach. But the 7, or in Chutzlar, it's 8 days of quote-unquote Pesach is really Chag HaMatzos. And the centerpiece of our week is a eating of matzah. The mitzvah is, and in fact the Vilna Gaon paskins, that there's a mitzvah to eat matzah all week long, not just on the first night. And the theme of the entire week of Pesach is the affirmation of matzah and the negation of chametz. And when you think about it, chametz and matzah are really the exact same thing. They're both water and flour that are mixed together, and just the chametz is allowed to rise. It sits, and just you let it sit, and it rises. When it comes to matzah, we don't allow it to rise. We knead it. We flatten it, put it in the oven, and we're good to go. So the only difference between chametz and matzah, the ingredients are exactly the same, but it's letting something sit, letting it sit, letting it rise, letting it get fluffy, and then baking it. Whereas matzah, we don't let that happen. We just knead it and bake it right away. And there's a theme here that the Bali Musar point out, and that is that, at least for these 7-8 days, but it's a message for all year long, is things tend to get fat, fluffy, soft when they're let to sit. And human nature is, we have a laziness inside of. We have a, when we have a break, when we're on vacation, when we have bein hazmanim, we tend to just kind of chill out. And that's when weakness starts to set in. That's when we lose that sense of urgency, that sense of focus, and sometimes we'll resort to just kind of wasting time, sleeping late, hanging out on our phones, just letting hours and hours and hours pass us by. That's chametz. That's the message of chametz. The message of matzah is use every moment, is take advantage of, keep the zrizus, the hustle. That's what the Bali Musar point out, the se'or shebe'isa, the yeast allows things to get fat, to get undisciplined. And that's Yesod. That's a message of a Musar message of chametz and matzah. The two are exactly the same thing. The only difference is when things are not worked, when they're not needed, when they're just sitting around doing nothing. And that midah of, we'll call it laziness, softness, that's what yields the chametz. So we should learn the lessons, take in the lessons of Chag Pesach, take full advantage of the beautiful time. I was once driving with Rav Asher Weiss Shlita, and I asked him how his Yantif was. It was right after Yantif. And he says if he ever became the Gadol Ador, I'm not sure he isn't that. He said, what would he do? He would extend Chol HaMoed. He would take advantage of this time, maximize this time. That's what we have to do. Take advantage of these beautiful Chagim with our mishpachos, perhaps spending more time learning, tapping into the message of the Chag, and certainly not allowing ourselves to lie fallow, to just sit, to get weakened, and to get chametzik. That's certainly something we have to be mevaer from our essence. Wishing everyone a beautiful Shabbos and a wonderful Shvi Shel Pesach.